So, a Villains Moment collab this time, Nando? Well, I think I can fit that in despite my busy schedule. But who to talk about? Friendship is Magic Season 4 finale? Nah, I have a feeling Twilight is more interesting to analyze than Tyrek. Miraculous Ladybug's Hawkmoth? Nah, I don't watch that show anymore. Lilith? Maybe another time. Who to choose? Ooh, perfect. This will work nice for One Villainous Scene. Cue the intro! Hello everybody, this is Silverblaze, and I love Xenoblade Chronicles. This series has just filled me with so much joy and excitement, and I feel the two games in the series are just the pinnacle of modern JRPG. Sure, they each have their own issues, especially in the second one, but I love both games all the same. Over the course of the original Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade 2, we've been led through two amazing and exciting worlds full of great characters and exciting locations to explore. And for this year's One Something Scene, which is all about villains, I feel it's just right to talk about one scene in particular from the second game that encompasses the motivation or redemption of our main villain in the story, Jin. From the start, Jin is such a strong and tragic antagonist to our main leads, shown throughout the story as a mysterious and stoic villain, which is a nice foil to our other main antagonist, the loud and destructive Malos. This scene from the end of Chapter 9 of Xenoblade 2's story, Rain, shows not only the relationship between Jin, Malos, and our protagonists, but also the relationship to the secondary villain of the game, Amalthus. So without further ado, let's jump right in. We're first introduced to Jin at the start of the story, where he and Malos show themselves to be the main villains in the first hour of the game, by killing our main hero, Rex, take Pyra, and plan to murder the hired salvagers for the expedition to find Pyra to keep them quiet on the involvement of Torna, the group that they lead. After that, they show up every so often in cutscenes, with more members of Torna slowly being introduced, and our heroes learning more about their organization than Mia, who is Best Girl. We even learn that Malos has a very specific connection to our main character Pyra, / Mithra, in the fact that he is the Dark Aegis, the opposite to the Light Aegis that Mithra represents. Though, at the same time, Jin just seems mysterious. We don't know too much about him, and he just seems like he's the silent but deadly right-hand man to Malos. That is, however, until we reach Chapter 5, when we learn that Jin was not only a blade, but specifically the fabled Jewel of Torna, and a former ally of Mithra, back 500 years ago during the first battle against Malos. We then get this scene.
That core crystal!
That color. It's like blood.
We find out that Jin is a flesh eater, a blade that has absorbed human essence and has since become a hybrid. You see, when a human a blade is bonded to, known as a driver, dies, their blade returns to its core crystal state, able to be awakened by another, but with no memory of their former life. Flesh eaters have some semblance of immortality in that regard, due to the fact that they have human and blade cells, as they can exist in the world without a driver, but it comes at a heavy price, as we see going through the story. At this point, the question we're asking is, why? Why did Jin betray Mithra? Why is he trying to destroy the world? And why does he keep the frozen corpse of his driver, Laura, on board Torna's vessel, the Marsanis? We soon learn in Chapter 8, when Jin temporarily joins the party in the land of Mortha. We then find out the fate of not only the old Titan nation of Torna, which is where the group gets their name, but also Laura, as it is revealed that Malthus, the praetor of the Church of the Nation of Indal, ordered the Indaline people to massacre the Tornan people after the war with Malos ended, which also led to the sinking of the alive Titan nation of Torna and the death of Laura, and Jin making the decision that would lead him to being the flesh eater he is today.
Laura!
Jin. The thought of you forgetting me. It's like one heart is being ripped in two.
I ate her.
Yeah, it's really tragic. And visceral to think about. Now, while I could dive into Amalthus's reasoning, as well as his own motives and tragedy as a villain, I think that's better to be saved for another video down the line. The only thing that matters in this context is Jin's point of view. He ate Laura's heart, the sin of a flesh eater, in one desperate attempt to preserve his own self, to ease himself from the pain. And yet, ironically, it also doomed him to his fate of living on the edge between life and death for 500 years. Jin is the very embodiment of a tragic figure, one driven down the road to hell by the malicious actions of another. As Red from Overly Sarcastic Productions would put it in her trope talk on Fallen Heroes, Jin would count as a Type 2 fallen hero, one who had fallen from grace due to the actions of another, and because of the actions of Amalthus, the only thing Jin desires is death, not just for him, but for everyone on the world of Allrest. The final downfall of the planet as one last act of revenge before he dies. I feel the Joker put it best for the circumstances behind Jin's fall and his entire motive.
All it takes is one bad day to reduce the sanest man alive to lunacy. That's how far the world is from where I am. One bad day.
This is where we're at with the final battle between Jin and our heroes when we get to the final act of Rain, and with it we finally get our One Villainous Scene. Now, there's honestly two parts to this, which is the ideals of Rex and his friends and how they affect Jin in this battle, and then Jin's relationship with Malos. For now, however, let's do a little bit of a play-by-play. This battle takes place right before the final leg of the World Tree. Our heroes, Jin and Malos, are almost to Elysium to gain the answers that they seek. Just near the top, though, Jin stops, saying that he's going to wait behind.
I was told to wait.
It is clear that the ghost of Laura, shown here, is the lingering guilt he still holds in his heart, knowing that Laura would never approve of the person he has become. This feeling, as well as the fact that he knows Rex and company will be coming for him soon causes him to stay behind, to face the heroes and see whose resolve, whose desire for the fate of Allrest is stronger, his or Rex's. In this moment, Malos says some final words to Jin that we don't quite get to hear, but I'll circle back to this part later. As Jin stands in the way of our heroes to prevent them from following Malos, it's clear from both his own reserved nature and Mithra's comments about his own condition that he will not survive this fight.
In your state, you should barely be able to stand. You know, if we fight now, you'll...
You seem right for me, Mithra, but I made a promise.
Despite this, Jin decides to fight, to truly see whose will the world of Allrest favors. Is it the will of our heroes? Or is it the will of Torna? As the fight goes on, and at its conclusion, we see Rex and Jin conversing their ideals between each other in combat. Jin believing humans will just ruin Elysium, just like they did with the land of Moritha, though Rex believes something greater, something that passes on from human to human, and blade to blade.
When a person dies, that's it for them. But their thoughts and memories will always be passed on to someone else. Isn't that the same with you, Blades? Your past selves get passed down to someone else to become your new selves? Isn't that how you've always lived? We're no different. Blades become titans when the time is up, and those titans give birth to many new blades, all while forming the world beneath our feet. It's awesome. It's enough to make me envious.
Envious? Of us?
So I'd like to ask the architect, Pyra, Mithra, all of you, why did he create all these incredible people? Actually, I think I might already know the answer. But I'd still like to check with the man himself.
God, I love Rex so much. This plucky little salvager is such a positive and optimistic attitude that just seems to draw the people around him closer to him. Say what you will about him being naive, but honestly I feel Rex embodies the one aspect of humanity that touches Jin in this moment, and that is hope for the future. The ideal that through the generations, humans and Blades can build up their society together and make things great for those in the future. I think this is something Jin lost along the way in his walk down the road to hell. This is something that Jin learns as he starts towards his moment of redemption, as after the group are interrupted by the return of Amalthus, now corrupted by the shards of core crystals bonded into his body, Jin finally acts as he regains the soul he left behind for one last blaze of glory.
It wasn't a mistake, was it? Becoming the blade of someone you trust.
Jin.
I did that too, once.
You should have died with Torna.
Let's end this now. Our duty has been handed down. Amalthus!
Your duty is as dust in the wind compared to mine.
Jin.
With his final act, Jin fades away into nothing. The heroes commending Jin's kind soul and lamenting his sacrifice. In this moment, Jin shows that despite it all, he was a hero, using his strength in his last moments to protect those he held close to him. Despite his plot for destruction, Jin has shown to care for others, including his former friends like Mithra and Brigid, but also his fellow members of Torna, Akos, Petroka, Mikal, and even Nia. Peeling back the layers on the stoic blade's personality, we see that Jin shows that he cares for those he is close to, and it's through that connection that he learns to care for humanity again, even if it was for a brief moment. We then come to the final scene of the chapter, with the full vision of how Jin and Malos met after Jin became a flesh-eater.
You're a blade, aren't you? Where's your driver? Dead drunk in a ditch? No, somehow I don't think that's it. The name's Malos. I'm the same as you.
Let's look at Malos a little bit closer, shall we? 500 years ago, his core crystal, the very thing keeping him alive, was broken. He lost a good portion of his power in that moment, and while still having some semblance of power, he could not access it fully. In a sense, he and Jin are kindred spirits, broken men who had everything taken away from them. Now, we are told Malos' fate is to destroy the world, but even then it's shown he actually has a close relationship to Jin. For the longest time, I didn't understand this, but it's not what we see from these two, but it's what we don't see. In his backstory, Amalthus awakened Malos into the world, and through his corrupted heart, did Malos, or Logos as he was originally called, become the destroyer he is. However, after his first defeat and meeting Jin, the two had 500 years together. Two souls longing for a purpose in the world. Malos cares for Jin because in essence, he has an equal. Perhaps not in strength, but in situation.
But that man, he'd lost everything. He no longer wanted anything. He didn't even want to live anymore. And despite that, his life was the one thing he hadn't lost. Because he couldn't!
Despite how much Malos pretends to not care of Jin's passing when he's gone, I believe deep down he is saddened by Jin's death. For without him, he has no purpose. And with it, he sets to destroy the world and everyone on it. And this circles back to the beginning of the scene. Despite the fact we will never really know what Malos said to Jin, I have a feeling I know what it might be. Thank you for giving me a purpose. Despite it all, Jin was the one thing that Malos needed. Being a susceptible being to the emotions around him, Malos shows that Jin was the one thing that he needed in his life. A friend. Jin truly was that important to him, and it shows more depth for not just Malos, but for Jin as well. It brings me back to a line from my favorite show, Common Letter W. Do you have the courage to ride with the devil? Jin demonstrates in this scene not only his own characterization and his redemption, but the impact he has on the people around him. On Rex, on Nia, on Mithra, on his fellow members in Torna, and on Malos. Jin is one of the most complicated, complex, and best written villains in the Xenoblade series, and his final battle and ultimate sacrifice can truly be called one tragically villainous scene. Man, that sounded a lot better in my head.